Hello everyone, and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name is Amanda. In today's video, we are going to be doing some K-pop Rumi nails. I have been seeing these all over Instagram and TikTok, so I thought I would give them a go. Now I've popped this set up on screen that I'm going to attempt to do. I was quite drawn to this set, so I thought I'd show you guys my inspiration because I know there are so many different K-pop designs around at the moment and it looks such a fun trend. So I thought I would give it a go. Now these nails have what looks like quite a sheer nude up at the cuticle area, which then fades into a black, which I personally find a little tricky. So I tried a few different things to try and get that blend to look as best as I could, but nude into black is a tricky one and does take a lot of practice. So I started off by doing a base of RB18. Because these are press-on nails, I always like to have a rubber base underneath. If I am going to wear them, it gives some strength. And then I thought that that would be nude enough, and then if I went over with a sheer jelly black, it would kind of create the effect. But I do end up coming in and blending a little bit more nude because I just feel as though the nude wasn't coming through as much as I wanted it to. So technically, if I was going to do this again, I probably would skip this step, but I included it just in case you're trying different techniques, and it does show a different way of doing it. And if you had a maybe different nude underneath, this would pop differently. So I left it in just so you guys can see the thought process. But I'm basically going to mix some clear base coat with Kiki London's classic black to create a black jelly gel. Now if you are looking for jelly gel polishes, you can very easily create these yourself using this technique, and it's really fun, especially for things like the coloured stained glass window look. It works really nice for that as well. So I've mixed this together. If you are doing this, you want to make sure you give it a really good mix, and you can play around with the opacity as much as you want. So obviously if you want it more jelly, you need more clear. If you want it to look a little bit more opaque, you need more of your colour. I was quite happy with the consistency it created here. So I'm going to go in and just start applying it using the round nail art brush that I mixed it with, and I'm just going to go in and do a thin coat of this on all of the nails. And this did create the look that I wanted, but what was tricky was blending the black into this. So I did still need like a colour to blend in, so I did go in with another nude then. So maybe this step helped more than I originally thought it did, but I'm just applying a thin layer of this because this is quite a layered design due to the ombre we're creating. I'm keeping everything nice and thin, like we only have one coat of that nude underneath at the moment, and then a very thin coat of this. As you can see, I'm really thinning it out as I'm pulling it back. And then once I've done this on all of the nails, we're going to pop these in to cure for 30 seconds. Now that we've got our base done, let's move on to the main part of our design. So I'm going to be taking RB14, which is a sheer nude colour. So this is actually one I would highly recommend for any kind of ombre because it's sheer and natural enough. It blends really nicely. And then we're going to be using classic black from the HEMA free range. Any kind of ombre that I'm doing, I always will have my ombre brush to hand because it makes it 10 times easier. So I've put a thin coat of this down, and as you can still see, that jelly base underneath it that we created, and I'm then going to take classic black, push this up into our RB14, and then pull this down to the tip of the nail. Now classic black is so highly pigmented, you want to apply this in a thin coat, and I found that I didn't actually need a second coat of this. Maybe having that jelly black underneath helped, but one coat was sufficient. Now comes the harder part, blending the black into the nude. So I started off just simply by pulling the two colours together, and then I'm taking the classic black into RB14, kind of going in both up and down and side to side motions to get those colours to blend as best as possible. And then every time you see my brush going out of shot, I'm cleaning it off on a lint-free pad that's soaked in some alcohol. Now I'm doing this just to keep my brush nice and clean so that when I'm coming in and blending those colours together, I'm not taking too much of the black into the nude. Now this was a little bit tricky, I'm not gonna lie. Black is one of the hardest colours to ombre, but you just wanna not overplay with it. Just pull a small amount of black into that nude do your ombre and leave it to settle. Sometimes the more you play with it, you're actually making harder work for yourself. So leave it to settle before curing, and then you'll see that that blend does soften. Now, doing this did take away some of the nude tone from that nude base because we're using quite a sheer one. So technically you could maybe use an more opaque one for this step, but that would probably be a little bit harder to ombre. So what I decided to do is I do come over with another thin coat of the nude once I've got my ombre done, which really helped soften the look of the blend as well. So I'm just going to go in and do this on all of the nails. I didn't leave showing you guys doing this step on all of the nails because I didn't want the video to be super repetitive, and I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to leave in the hand painting symbols at the end, because they was actually the most fun part to do for this design. So I'm blending away, and then once we've blended all of this in, we do a few more steps just to perfect that ombre. But as you can see, the ombre brush does make this easier. I couldn't imagine having to do this with any other kind of nail art brush because it would be tricky. I feel as though I might try this look again for something Halloweeny, so let me know if you would like to see that. Maybe a more classic ombre where the nude isn't focused just at the cuticle area, because I do love the technique. So we did that on all 5 nails, popped them in to cure for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to work on that nude area at the cuticle zone. So I'm coming in with RB14, just applying this down at that cuticle area, and then I'm going to take my ombre brush and simply blend this down over the classic black. Now this is sheer enough that you're not going to see it over the black, but we are going to buff the surface of this now anyway, so we can remove some of that excess then. Again, I'm going to do this on all of the nails, but I have just shown you guys doing it on a couple of the nails. Now the key here is to keep this nice and thin, although with the rubber base you can build this up. We don't want to add too much thickness, but this is a great way of also adding a bit of a natural apex to the nails, especially if you're working on more medium or longer nails. But I'm keeping it nice and thin and using my ombre brush to drag it down simply to blend it out. And it's a little hard to see here, but you can see it softened that area where the black and nude met. Now these nails on the tips, it was a little hard to see the nude. It definitely popped a little bit more when I put them on, which I do leave a picture at the end of how they look wearing them. So we're going to wipe over the surface now that we've cured all of the rubber base that we've just applied. So we're wiping over with some alcohol, and then I'm going to buff the surface of the nail. So I'm doing this for 2 reasons. We added that second layer of a rubber base, so I want to make sure everything's nice and smooth. So I'm buffing over to do that, but then I'm also buffing the surface because we're going to come in hand paint, and I always find it a lot easier to hand paint on a matte surface. So by buffing, you're giving the nail a matte surface without having to add a matte top coat and add additional layers to the nail. If you don't feel comfortable buffing, you can go in at this point with a matte top coat, but I just find it easier to buff when I've already added lots of gel products. We're then going to take the Kiki London Silver Metallic Nail Art Gel and the Stripe Liner Brush. As you can see, I've popped some of that metallic gel down onto my palette, and I'm going to begin creating the symbols that she had on her nails. Now, I am not 100% sure if they represent anything or what the symbols actually mean. Do let me know in the comments below. I haven't watched Kpop Demon Hunters. My daughter has watched it, my youngest one, and she actually wants to watch it together this weekend, so I said we would give it a go. I've heard the soundtrack loads. My older daughter is big into K-pop music, so it's a big thing in our house, but I haven't actually watched it closely enough to know if these symbols mean anything. So I wanted to make sure I copied them as best as I could. So at this point, I had another phone next to me with that same screenshot that I showed you guys at the start of the video, so I could copy them as close as I could. And I have to be honest, this is a little bit hard because you're wanting to get it as similar or as the same as possible. Now it is made easier with the stripe liner brush. I love this brush for applying the gel paints. The gel paints have a very thin consistency, so they work really nicely on this brush because a little bit goes a long way. So I was just going along each nail trying to copy those designs as close as possible. There are some dots in the design as well, and this is made easy with a dotting tool. I'm using the Kiki London dotting and gem tool for this. If you don't have a dotting tool, You could use something like a toothpick or the end of a hair clip, you know, the ones that slide in. They work really well as well if you don't have a dotting tool to hand. You can also make dots using the very tip of your nail art brush as well, but it is a lot easier with a dotting tool. So if you haven't got one of those in your nail art kit, I would highly recommend it. Now, this silver metallic gel paint worked so well for this, but you could also do this in chrome as well if you wanted that more mirror chrome effect, or kind of like the 3D effect that some of the K-pop designs have had. I have seen some beautiful K-pop nail designs. There's the nude one with the gold stars. I'm really loving the look of that, and I've seen quite a few lilac ones with like glitters and flakes embedded, so I'm really tempted to try those as well. So do let me know in the comments below if you would like to see any more designs. Let me know any that you would like to see done, and I can go have a little search and give them a go, because it's lots of fun doing a trending design because you get to put your spin on it alongside seeing how everyone else is doing it as well, which I find quite fun to do. So we're just going through, I think this is the fourth nail now. This was the one I found the hardest. It was a little blurry to see the actual detail in the picture that I had. So what I wanted to mention is when I'm doing this, I'm kind of mapping it out really thin first of all, so that way if I make any mistakes it's easy to wipe off, but then also it means that you can very lightly draw it on and then go over and make those lines a little bit thicker. I find this way a little bit easier just because you're mapping it out and you can do that quite quickly and then take your time perfecting it after, if that makes sense. So I haven't done loads of hand painting, it's not my strong point, but it is fun when you're working alongside an image you can see. So this is definitely a great way to practice your hand painted nail art. And luckily, although some of these symbols were intricate, they were quite simple at the same time. I found, like I said, I found this one the hardest to do, but they was really fun to do, and I really liked how they looked on as well. So I'm just going to finish this one up with some dots. I didn't have a picture of what the thumb looked like, so I copied one of the fingernails instead, and then that one ended up coming my favorite. So this is what they look like once we'd finished all of that hand painting. You pop your metallic gel paint in to cure for 60 seconds, and it's then time to come in and seal everything in with your top coat and also bring the shine back to the nails where we had buffed them. I really love this step when I've done an ombre, because I feel as though sometimes your ombre just looks a little bit off, but once you come in and top coat it looks good again, if that makes sense. I'm using the no wipe rubber top coat because we've got that hand painted nail art on the top, so it does kind of leave a little slight unevenness to the surface, and the rubber top coat smooths this out. Also because this is a press on nail set, and usually when I create a set of press on nails I'll wear them for a couple of days, and I like having the strength of the rubber top coat for that reason. So I've done this to all of the nails. We're going to pop them in to cure for 60 seconds, and then this is the finished result. It was a little hard to see how opaque the nude was because we've gone over clear tips, but you'll see in this picture here what it looked like on, and I absolutely loved them. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching. If you did, please do hit the thumbs up button, leave us a comment below, and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Bye bye.